This is Ndtv, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to the Indie Film Club, your ticket to the exciting world of short films. Over the next hour, we're going to introduce you to people with stars in their eyes and show reels in their back pockets. We're going to show you their work and try and understand what makes them tick. And to offer them perspectives from the industry, we have with us in the studio actor, writer and director Anant Mahadevan. Welcome on the show, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to start talking about your first film, Dil Vil Pyar Vyar. It was termed as experimental, it was termed as different. Was it a risk, because considering that was your first film?
Well, it was a test by fire. I mean, virtually trying to get into the cinema, feature film world with a very difficult film. It was India's first retro musical, experimental in many ways, and yet within a popular parameter. So it had a blend of both popular cinema, mainstream cinema, and the offbeat variety. And yes, it was a challenge because it wasn't an easy film to make. When you actually take up R.D. Burman's tunes and fit it into a modern milieu with every lyric, every word in the lyric fitting a new situation without changing anything, it did pose a challenge, and I'm glad I did Dil Vil Pyar Vyar as my first film.
And being an actor, you're an established actor, how did that influence your role as a director?
It always helps to be on both sides of the fence, because when you are faced with the difficulty of an actor not being able to do a particular scene or deliver a particular dialogue, I mean, you can get out there and actually tell him or help him to do it because you know what you're talking about. And the actor also appreciates that because he knows what the director is talking about. He's just not talking through his hat. So it always helps. I mean, one would like to be an all-rounder. One would like to be a writer, director, because they're all parts of the whole, you see.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you are well averse with every facet of filmmaking, be it editing, cinematography, direction, writing, even production.
It always helps the role.
Oh, yes, of
You
course.
also made this film for television called Staying Alive. What was that about?
Well, it was initially meant for television, but at the moment they are seriously considering of giving it a limited multiplex release, because there are names like Kundan Shah and Sudhir Mishra and many others who are involved in a series of films that the channel has made. And considering that we shot it on Super 16, I mean, it's shot like film in a CinemaScope format, we are looking at a wider release before actually getting it on television. Coming back to Staying Alive, it's very interesting because I really don't have any reference point for this film. It's about a journalist who's had his third heart attack. He's in the ICU of a hospital, and we have an underworld guy on the next bed next to him, who's had his first heart attack. Now, the underworld guy is petrified of dying, and the journalist is actually laughing at that because nothing has happened after 3 heart attacks. Okay. And the entire philosophy of staying alive, the entire psyche of staying alive, that the journalist imparts to the underworld guy, and the underworld guy actually starts looking at life in a very different way. He suddenly realizes he hasn't been living at all. Life is not just living, but life is living in a different fashion. So the change that he undergoes and the bonding that happens between two very unlikely people and a very surprise twist in the end is what it's all about.
What do you think of this current scenario? You know, people are looking at different kinds of storylines, concentrating more on content rather than usual formula. I mean, is it a positive environment?
I mean, it's finally happening. The writing is very clear on the wall that people are the audience is looking for subjects that are going away from the formula, the kind of formula we are used to over the past 80 years in Indian cinema. And although we still call it a niche audience, I'm glad that this audience is growing and the audience is awakening to a new kind of cinema because they're being exposed to continental cinema, to films from Sweden and Poland, Czech films, you know, Italian films, Russian and Japanese films. That is where the real cinema comes from. And I'm glad that people are awakening to the fact that there's much beyond Hollywood and the so-called Bollywood cinema.
Yeah, that takes care of, you know, an audience. But what about filmmakers? I mean, you know, the whole list of new filmmakers who want to try something new, want to make their own short films, express themselves. Do you think that's...
Yes, the awakening among amongst students of cinema and young filmmakers is also there, because they have been exposed to this. Although the older generation has been exposed to that kind of cinema, they never dared to actually experiment in that fashion with themes that go beyond the normal Bollywood formula. But today we have young filmmakers who are looking beyond that, who are daring to express themselves, and even with limited resources at their disposal, they are actually experimenting. I hate to use this word experiment, because our films are so bad that anything that's sensible is called an experimental film. But we have to use this for the time being, for want of a better word. So I'm glad that people are doing this, and I'm sure their tribe will grow, and we'll get to see cinema of a different kind very soon from India.
Well, welcome back to Indie Film Club. We're now joined by Dhaval Shah, the director of Dear Mom. Dhaval is a mass communication graduate and has co-directed a film called Sesson prior to this. This is his first independent venture. Welcome on the show, Dhaval.
Thank you.
So, your comments on his film?
Well, I liked a certain casualness about the whole project. It was like the girl, the protagonist herself, who takes a video camera, or the others who take a video camera and actually shoot it like a home video. The actors, I mean, if I may call them actors, because they were amazingly casual for friends, as you said, who took part in the film. They were absolute naturals, and I'm glad that you didn't really make them do something, and they were on their own, they did their own thing. And for an attempt like this, I mean, one shouldn't get too critical about an attempt like this. One should rather look at the pros and cons. I mean, it projected a picture of independent working girls staying together, their aspirations, their frustrations, a little joy here and there, a certain amount of success, the other being denied the success, the girl's intention to actually write letters through a video camera, because that is what she always wanted to be on.
Yeah.
All that has come out very interestingly, and I think somewhere the very tragic end really gets you by the end of it all. The twist at the end of it all really gets you, and it's interesting. I mean, I would like him to speak about it, how he actually got around to making this film and, you know, shooting something as improvised as this.
Yeah, Dhaval, why don't you tell us about the production involved?
Production, I don't know. I had shot this film 2 years back as a college project, which actually started from the camera work, as in they're shooting a home video for a mom. But then spoke to a friend, discussed this concept, and then got it written, and then had certain things added and, you know, removed from the earlier script which we had done. So came out to be pretty decent. That's what I think, but I don't know what other people would think about it.
And what kind of a budget did you work on? I mean,
budget, my friend, casually speaking to a friend, talking about this movie, remaking it when she was in my class. So she actually produced the movie for me. So it was around 16,000 bucks. So yeah, I shot it in 1 day, 14 hours, and then took like another 40 years to edit it.
okay. And
What is most important and interesting is that he has not thought on regular lines. He's thought about something that is very relevant to today's youth. And I mean, if this line of thought, you pursue this line of thought in future, I think you'll get to make more interesting films. You'll sort of, you know, stumble on more interesting concepts and subjects. So at least the beginning is correct.
Thank you.
so he's got a foothold there. But how do you think he should enter the industry? I mean, he's a complete newcomer with probably no connections whatsoever to, you know, the film fraternity.
Not at all.
So how do you go about
$1 million
it?
question. You know, how do you enter the film industry? Well, it's like, you know, it's like a chakravyuh. You enter it and then you can't get out. But to enter it, you have to know the formula how to enter it. I mean, for people like Dhaval who are aspiring filmmakers and would like to get into it, I think somewhere one should believe in oneself. One should work very hard on scripts. One should expose oneself to international cinema. The greats, you know, I'm not saying get inspired or get copied. I mean, copy them, but make sure that their greatness somewhere flows into the kind of stuff you attempt at this nascent stage. And I'm sure you'll find yourself on the right track. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. But there have been people who have proved us wrong. You know, there are people who have worked on subjects that are totally off the cuff, off beat, and yet
succeeded.
And succeeded. I mean, this documentary, The Little Terrorist.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a sterling example of what one can do if one has conviction and one has belief in oneself and one knows what kind of subjects to tackle.
What are your plans next, Dhaval?
Next, I'm hoping to assist a director who's working on a film on Afghanistan.
Okay.
So we probably start the pre-production by mid-July. So that's the first break I'll ever get on assisting on a feature film. So let's hope it's good.
Well, thank you, Dhaval, for coming on the show, and
Thanks a
all
lot.
the best in the future.
Thanks.